Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about how AgilePoint can work with a list, SharePoint list having a managed metadata column in general, as well as how it can do a lookup against the SharePoint term store. For the sake of this demo, we have set up a list over here in one of my SharePoint site collections called metadata list. If I go to the list definition and I go to list settings, if you see over here, there are two columns over here called metadata column and metadata auto suggest over here, just two dummy columns. If I drill down into it, the first column, it is bound to a country term store called USA, and second one is bound to a country term store called India. So if I switch back to this, I have already created one list item whose title I just gave it 1, 2, 3, and the metadata column is California, which I picked up one of the states, and Karnataka is one of the states I picked from India. I picked up on the second column, which I'm going to use for an auto suggest field, just to show this functionality. However, before we get into the new term store lookup feature, which is coming up in our new uh, software update package, upcoming software update package, I just wanted to cover that how AgilePoint can still already retrieve data and show data from these managed metadata columns on the form, and then what build on top of it, what we are going to support going forward as well. So I'm going to create a new app. So I'm going to call it manage demo, just to keep it short. And click finish. So this functionality which I'm showing you is available today as well. Today I can retrieve a value from a managed metadata column using a lookup on the form and show it on the form, and also all the process shapes already support reading or writing data to a managed metadata lookup column. The only thing which was not supported was if I had a drop down or a grid on the form and I wanted to fill in the drop down from a term store in SharePoint. That's the new functionality which we have added. So I'm going to show you the existing functionality. This is available in software update 5 already. So I'm going to click on add a new form. Just call it submit. And what I'm going to do is, because my list has these 3 columns, I'm going to add 3 columns on my form as well. I'm going to add 3 text boxes. I'm going to click on common, call this title. Manage metadata 1. I'm just going to call it mm1. And the third one is manage metadata 2. So I had 2 manage metadata columns, which later I'm going to use for the auto suggest field. Okay. And I'm going to next put an auto lookup over here. And I'm going to configure this auto lookup to go against the regular SharePoint lookup, SharePoint list lookup. So I'm going to select SharePoint, going to select the access token, give it a name, demo. Going to select multiple columns because I want to fill those multiple columns out there. Going to connect to my SharePoint online environment and bring down all the site collections and lists. So I'm going to select the root site collection, and under that there is a list over there called manage metadata list. So metadata list. And instead of bringing down all the rows from all the columns from SharePoint, I'm going to say I just want title, which will be mapped to the title field on my form. I'm going to bring down the taxonomy field type, which is manage metadata column, and it is mapped to mm1. And I'm going to bring down the one I called as metadata auto suggest. Now if you notice, there are what SharePoint does is it gives an internal column called autosuggest underscore 0, which is of type node, but the one we are dealing with is the actual manage metadata column, which is the taxonomy field type. So I'm going to enable that. And in the where clause, if you remember, the title of my item was 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to use that as the filter. I'm going to say where title equal to 1, 2, 3, just to show that the value comes back, and click on test query. So it executes the lookup and it brings down the rows for me, right? So if I click on this and open the form in the preview mode, it basically goes out to SharePoint and then brings down the values from my lookup, which is 1, 2, 3, California and Karnataka, which is coming from this list item. Now this is how it used to work today, and as I said, even at the shape level, I can at the process level, any activity like, for example, an update metadata can read and write data into a manage metadata column. That functionality was already there. However, as part of our ongoing enhancements for SharePoint, we have added a new kind of a lookup to directly populate a drop down from a term store, SharePoint term store. So let's look at the term store. Right now I have a country term store over here. I have India under that, and within India I have a few terms defined, and also for USA I have few terms defined. So I'm going to actually use both of these. I'm going to switch to this environment, and this has the upcoming software update applied. So I'm going to call it demo here. So I'm going to take the demo scenario one notch up, where I'm going to now start adding drop downs and make it a data entry form instead of just reading data out of a manage metadata list item. So again, I'm going to add a start task. Click next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a text box which is called title. I'm going to put a drop down, so make it a data entry form. I'm going to call it mm1 in this case, and I'm going to bind it to a lookup. So what I would do is, instead of an inline lookup, I'm going to do a lookup list. Click on plus. Now over here it would ask me what kind of a lookup I want to create, and I'm going to say with SharePoint. And now it would give me one new option, if you see over here, whether I want to do a regular SharePoint lookup against a SharePoint list or a document library, or I want to look up data against a SharePoint term store. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. Select the access token, call it demo. And now because this is a name value kind of a lookup, I'm going to select name value. So you see this is coming back from my taxonomy store. It has the same structure. The country is India and USA. So the drop down I'm going to actually associate with USA. Now what it does is it can go only one level deep. So whichever level, if I would have selected say country, then it would have shown me two options, India and USA. But I'm going to whatever parent I select. So in this case I'm going to drill down all the way to USA. So it would list down in the drop down all the nodes under that parent node. So I'm going to select USA and click finish. So USA, and then in the name and value I can either select the term name or the term ID. I'm going to keep name and value as term name and click finish. For some reason, if I wanted to show the ID, I can do that as well. Okay, and the next field I'm going to select would be an auto suggest. I'm going to call it. So I just wanted to show that it works beyond just drop down controls as well. So I'm going to use an auto suggest list. Now the same would work for grids and multi-choice fields, all those as well. So let's go ahead and create another SharePoint lookup. Select term store, access token. Now this is time I'm going to call it demo 2. I'm going to select India and finish. Now let's just quickly test our form. I'm going to enter something over here, and if I see this is bound to my manage metadata column, right? And same way, if I start typing, this is the auto suggest. It is bringing back states from the states from India over here, right? So I'm going to select California. Let's select something else. I already have a row with California, and this is my title, right? Now what I'm going to do is, once user has submitted this data, so I'm going to save this form and I'm going to push this data back to SharePoint using a create SharePoint list item shape. So I'm going to go to my SharePoint stencil, and drag and drop the create list item. So I'm going to show you how shapes can already deal with the manage metadata columns as well. This functionality was already there in the previous release. So I'm going to select SharePoint Online, token, my site would be root site, and then I go over here and say, okay, you know what, I want to mm2 over here, mm2 over here, mm1 over here, and title over here. Okay, and click finish. Let's save and check in and publish this process. Now let's navigate to Work Center. And go to my applications. Go to the demo application, and I'm going to start filling out the form itself. So I'll call it demo, and I'm going to call it Illinois and Karnataka, right? And click submit. It kicks off a process, and within the next few seconds I should see a new row being inserted into my SharePoint list. So you see now the new row has come in over here with the proper values. So hopefully this new functionality makes sense, and what we are trying to do over here is, if you have created already your term sets in SharePoint, you can leverage it in your drop downs of your form, if that form is meant to push data back into SharePoint list, so that the data is in synchronization. You do not have to define separate inline lists on the Agile point side. Thank you.